My sister didn't raise her voice when she said it. She didn't need to. The $5.2 million estate is legally mine, she announced, smiling across the Thanksgiving table. No one questioned her. No one looked at me. Forks paused midair, then kept moving. The decision was already accepted before anyone asked how she knew. I stayed quiet. Not because I was shocked, but because I knew something they didn't. What my sister was claiming no longer existed. And the person who could prove it was already on his way to the house. Thanksgiving dinner had just ended when my sister decided to speak. The plates were still on the table, the last of the wine being poured, when Victoria Morgan cleared her throat and smiled the way she always did when she believed she was about to be admired. Everyone looked up instinctively. My mother leaned back in her chair. My uncle folded his hands. No one questioned why she was the one taking control. I think it's time we talked about Grandma Ruth's estate, Victoria said, calm and confident. I've reviewed the documents. I didn't move. I already knew how this would go. The estate is valued at $5.2 million, she continued. And legally, it belongs to me. No gasp. No objections. Just nods. Victoria had always been the obvious choice in their minds, the polished one, the successful one, the one who spoke like money listened to her. She wore certainty like armor. I wore silence. There's a provision for Eliza, she added, finally glancing at me. It's fair, modest, appropriate. Appropriate. The word settled in my chest like something heavy and familiar. I am Eliza Morgan, the younger sister. The quiet one. The one people stop explaining things to because they assume I won't understand anyway. I folded my hands in my lap and stared at the table, watching everyone accept Victoria's words as fact. No one asked for proof. No one asked questions. No one asked me anything. The assumption didn't need defending. They had already agreed on it long before that night. And that was the moment I realized something important. They weren't waiting to hear the truth. They were waiting for confirmation of what they already believed. My family had been telling the same story about us for years. In their version, Victoria Morgan was the success story. The eldest daughter, the one who spoke loudly, dressed sharply, and never hesitated to remind people where she worked or how much responsibility she carried. She talked in numbers and confidence, and everyone mistook that for control. I was the contrast they needed to make her shine. I was the steady one. The quiet one. The one who lived simply and never announced anything worth envying. I didn't interrupt conversations. I didn't explain myself unless asked, which was rare. Over time, silence became their evidence. They assumed I lacked ambition because I didn't perform it for them. When Victoria spoke about money, they listened. When I stayed quiet, they filled in the blanks themselves. It wasn't cruelty. It was convenience. They believed success sounded a certain way, looked a certain way, demanded attention. And since I didn't fit that picture, they placed me somewhere smaller. Safer. Less capable. No one ever asked how I managed my life. No one wondered how I stayed so calm. No one questioned why I never needed help. They didn't see discipline. They saw absence. By the time Thanksgiving came, their story about us was already finished. Victoria was meant to lead. I was meant to accept. And because everyone agreed on that story, they never considered that the truth might have been written very differently long before that night. The decision my family argued about that night had already been made years earlier. I remember the afternoon clearly because it didn't feel dramatic at all. No raised voices. No tension. Just my grandmother, Ruth Morgan, sitting across from me at her small kitchen table, sunlight resting on the worn wood between us. She had always preferred quiet conversations. Important things, she believed, didn't need an audience. People think inheritance is a reward, she said, stirring her tea slowly. It isn't. I didn't answer. I had learned to listen first. This estate, she continued, represents 40 years of careful choices. Mistakes I paid for. Lessons I didn't repeat. She looked at me then, not searching, but certain. I need to know it will be protected. I tried to object. I was the younger granddaughter. The one no one expected to carry something that heavy. But she shook her head gently. I've watched both of you, she said. One of you spends to feel secure. The other plans so she doesn't have to. They have some are gay, AASA. A week later we sat in a trust lawyer's office. Papers were signed. Doctors had already evaluated her mental clarity. Everything was documented, precise, final. The assets were transferred into irrevocable trusts, effective immediately. When we left, she squeezed my hand. "Responsibility isn't loud, Eliza," she said. "It doesn't need applause." At the time, I didn't understand how much that choice would cost me. I only knew she had trusted me with something that could never be given back. For 5 years, I carried a truth no one in my family knew. On paper, my life didn't change much. I still lived in the same modest apartment. I still drove the same reliable car. I still went to work every morning without talking about numbers or titles. To my family, I remained Eliza Morgan, dependable, unremarkable, easy to overlook. Behind the scenes, I was learning how to protect something fragile. The estate wasn't a single account or a pile of cash. It was properties that needed maintenance, investments that required restraint, decisions that punished impatience. I read reports at night. I asked questions quietly. I made conservative choices and lived with them. Growth came slowly, exactly the way my grandmother had intended. Meanwhile, Victoria lived as if the future were already settled. She upgraded apartments, changed cars, took vacations she posted carefully online. She spoke often about, when the estate is finalized, about plans she would make someday. No one questioned her certainty. I didn't interrupt it. Grandma stopped giving her money after the transfers. "I can't afford it anymore," she would say, which was technically true. Victoria complained about that too. Said grandma was becoming difficult. Said wealth should be enjoyed. I documented everything. Not out of spite, out of responsibility. Every year that passed confirmed what grandma had seen long before I had. Silence wasn't weakness. It was structure. While everyone else waited for an ending they assumed was guaranteed, I focused on preservation. By the time grandma passed away, the estate was stronger than it had ever been. And still, no one knew it belonged to me. Thanksgiving night felt heavier once dessert was cleared. The conversation drifted, but everyone was waiting for the same thing. Victoria sensed it. She always did. She straightened in her chair, smoothing her sleeve as if preparing for a presentation instead of a family conversation. "I think we should be practical," she said. "Now that grandma is gone, it's time to be clear about what happens next." She spoke as if the room belonged to her. "The estate is valued at approximately $5.2 million, Victoria continued. "I've reviewed the will and the supporting documents. As the eldest, I'll be handling the legal process. I sunshine Mainstead." My mother nodded. My aunt avoided my eyes. "There will be a distribution," Victoria added, finally turning toward me. "Eliza, you'll receive a portion. Not insignificant but reasonable." Reasonable. The word landed the same way appropriate had earlier, final, unchallengeable. She went on, outlining plans she had already decided on. What would be sold? What would be kept? How long probate would take? She spoke with confidence, not arrogance, because no one had ever taught her the difference. I watched the room accept her version of events in real time. No one asked how she knew. No one asked whether anything had changed. They trusted her tone more than the facts. When she finished, Victoria smiled, satisfied. "I'll coordinate with the attorney and keep everyone informed." That was when I finally spoke. "Maybe," I said calmly, "we should wait." The table stilled slightly. Victoria laughed, assuming I was joking. "For what?" she asked. "For the trust lawyer," I replied. "The one who actually handled grandma's estate." The smile on her face didn't disappear, but something underneath it shifted. And for the first time that night, the certainty in the room wavered. The knock at the door came sooner than anyone expected. My mother looked confused as she stood up to answer it, wiping her hands on a dish towel as if this were just another late guest. When she stepped aside, a man in a charcoal suit entered the room carrying a leather briefcase. His movements were calm, practiced, unhurried. "Good evening," he said. "I'm Daniel Price, the trust lawyer who worked with Ruth Morgan." The room went quiet in a way that felt physical. Victoria's posture stiffened. "We weren't expecting." "I was invited," Daniel replied gently, setting his briefcase on the table. He glanced around the room, then nodded once. I understand there's been some discussion about the estate. Victoria recovered quickly. She smiled, the professional one she used at work. Yes. I've already reviewed the will. Everything seems clear. Daniel opened his briefcase and removed a slim folder. The will, he said calmly, is no longer the controlling document. The silence that followed stretched. What do you mean? My aunt asked. There is no $5.2 million estate to inherit, Daniel continued. Those assets were transferred out of Ruth Morgan's personal estate years ago. It's not for the fiddy. Victoria laughed sharply. That's not possible. It is, he said, without raising his voice. The assets were placed into irrevocable trusts. Ownership transferred immediately upon execution. Probate does not apply. My mother sat down slowly. Daniel turned a page. Those trusts name Eliza Morgan as the sole trustee and legal owner. The words landed unevenly, as if the room didn't know how to receive them. Victoria looked at me, genuinely confused now. That's not Eliza, doesn't. I said quietly. Daniel nodded. Miss Morgan has managed the assets for the past 5 years. Questions started overlapping. Shock. Disbelief. Someone whispered my name like they were testing it. Daniel raised one hand, calm as ever. Everything was executed with full legal oversight. Medical evaluations confirmed competency. Documentation was filed and recorded. Victoria's certainty finally cracked. So you're saying, she whispered, there's nothing for me. Daniel met her gaze evenly. I'm saying your grandmother made her decision deliberately and legally. No one spoke after that. Because for the first time that night, authority didn't come from confidence. It came from the truth. Daniel Price didn't argue with anyone in the room. He didn't need to. One by one, he placed documents on the table, aligning them neatly as if order itself were part of the explanation. Trust filings, transfer records, dates and signatures that didn't care about opinions. These were executed over several meetings, he said. Not rushed. Not influenced. Victoria reached for the papers, her hands no longer steady. Grandma was sick, she insisted. She wasn't thinking clearly. Daniel nodded once. Which is why she requested independent medical evaluations. He slid 2 reports forward. Both physicians confirmed full mental capacity. The room felt smaller. Then Daniel removed a final envelope sealed, yellowed at the edges. This is a personal letter Ruth asked me to keep. To be shared only if her decision was questioned. He opened it slowly and began to read. She wrote about love without favoritism. About how affection doesn't excuse destruction. About watching one granddaughter spend to feel important, and the other planned so she could sleep at night. Victoria's face drained of color. She didn't choose Eliza because she loved you less, Daniel said gently, folding the letter. She chose Eliza because she trusted her more. No one interrupted. I felt the weight of every silent year settle into place. The discipline, the restraint. The nights spent choosing patience over impulse. Daniel closed the folder. There is no legal ambiguity here. The trusts are irrevocable. They cannot be challenged successfully. In Nether Reddles, Victoria stared at the table, the story she had lived inside of finally collapsing. The argument didn't end because someone won. It ended because there was nothing left to say. Silence never lasts when entitlement is exposed. Victoria was the first to break it. So this was planned, she said, her voice sharp now. You two decided this behind my back. Daniel Price didn't respond immediately. He didn't need to. I did. No, I said. It was decided. Long before anyone else thought to ask. Action. Victoria stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. This is manipulation. You took advantage of her. You knew she trusted you. Daniel finally spoke. Miss Morgan, accusations are not evidence. Victoria turned to my mother, desperate now. You're just going to let this happen? My mother looked between us, torn, exhausted. I didn't know, she said quietly. I didn't know any of this. That doesn't make it wrong, I replied. It just makes it uncomfortable. Today, Victoria threatened legal action. Daniel shut it down with calm precision. He explained what a challenge would cost, what documentation existed, what the outcome would be. Every sentence narrowed the room until there was nowhere left for hope to stand. The fight drained out of her. What remained was not anger, but collapse, the sudden realization that the future she had been spending in advance no longer existed. She left soon after, without saying goodbye. The house felt different once the door closed. Lighter, somehow, but fractured. That night didn't destroy our family. It simply removed the illusion holding it together. And once that illusion was gone, everyone was forced to face the consequences of the stories they had chosen to believe. After that night, people asked me if it was worth it. They asked if I felt victorious. If I enjoyed watching my sister lose something she believed was hers. If money had finally put me above everyone who once dismissed me. The truth is simpler and heavier. The estate was never a prize. It was a responsibility I didn't ask for, and a trust I couldn't betray. What my grandmother gave me wasn't wealth, it was a duty to protect the work of her lifetime from being undone in a few careless years. I didn't sell the house. I kept it open for family, even those who no longer speak to me. I kept the investments conservative, steady, patient. I set aside part of the estate for causes my grandmother cared about, quiet work that doesn't make headlines but lasts. Victoria eventually stopped calling. I don't blame her. Some realizations come with too much grief to survive conversation. My mother and I speak carefully now. Less often. More honestly. What changed most wasn't my financial position, it was my understanding of silence. Silence isn't absence. It's choice. It's discipline. It's restraint in a world that rewards noise. My grandmother understood that. She didn't choose the louder voice. She chose the steadier hands. And when the trust lawyer spoke that night, he didn't take anything away from my sister. He simply told the truth about what had already been given and why. Before you leave, I want to speak to you not as someone who won, but as someone who learned something the hard way. If you've ever been underestimated, spoken over, or quietly placed in the background because you didn't perform confidence the way others expected, I see you. And if this story resonated with you, I invite you to leave a comment and tell me what you would have done in my place. Would you have spoken sooner? Stayed silent longer? Or chosen a completely different path? Your perspective matters more than you think. What this experience taught me is simple but powerful. Real responsibility doesn't need applause. Discipline looks boring from the outside. Boundaries often feel uncomfortable, especially with family. But protecting what you've built, your time, your peace, your future, is not selfish. It's necessary. In your own life, don't confuse loud confidence with capability. Don't assume silence means weakness. And never let guilt push you into betraying your values. If you believe in stories about quiet strength, hard boundaries, and choosing long-term stability over short-term approval, please support this channel. Like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so we can keep having honest conversations like this together. Your voice belongs here.